Perfect. Okay, so welcome everyone. Welcome to Rethinking Legal Ops, a podcast where we talk to industry experts, innovators, and legal experts about the future of law. Thank you to Sweet Legaltech, which is one of our partners, and to Speed Legal. Today we have as our amazing guest, Donnie Dong, partner at FuJae Partners, calling from Hong Kong. Hi, Donnie, how are you?
Hi Hans, how are you? I'm good.
Nice, great to have you. So first of all, could you give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Okay, so basically I'm a kind of a lawyer practicing in Asia Pacific. Now I'm based in both in Shanghai and Hong Kong. I'm a partner of FuJae Partners, which is a Chinese law firm. I have quite a few, like almost 20 years experience in the area of intellectual property, technology law, and privacy. I advise multinational companies in the industry of information technology, fintech, flower industry, and investment. And one of my job previously was to leading a global fintech companies data privacy programs in 12 jurisdictions across the region of Asia Pacific. So that's basically I got my PhD degree in Hong Kong and another doctorate degree in mainland China. And I am kind of a combination of the scholar and the lawyer. So that's all.
Thank you, Donnie. And that's very interesting. We found briefly before the podcast that we both studied at the same university in Hong Kong. I was there just as an exchange student, and Donnie did his PhD, which is great.
Yeah, that's
So
great. So we are schoolmates.
yeah, that, that's very nice. So starting, so we are talking usually in this podcast about future of law, legal tech, and so the first question that I would ask you is, given your current location, which is China, Hong Kong, right? What's the level of adoption of tech tools among practitioners in China?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Basically, generally speaking, in this part of the world, I think generally speaking, the legal tech has just like applications, mobile applications, and web applications, assisting or facilitating the lawyers to do their basic work. I I would say that unfortunately we do have heard about quite a few kind of applications, a project which are trying to use the artificial intelligence to improve or increase the efficiency of the legal work. However, most of the lawyers and large law firms are still using their manpower to facilitate and serve their clients. Um, I think we have quite a few aspects of the law, areas of law in which the level of the tech tools are higher, used higher or more frequent than the other aspects or areas. Say, for example, in the intellectual property area, um, we we do have heard about the real exercise of the tech tools like crawling the internet by searching the counterfeiting or infringing products on the marketplace, online marketplace, like Amazon, Alibaba, or these kind of a marketplace. And this kind of application has been integrated into the anti-counterfeiting services by the lawyers. So, for example, one very interesting example is, in China, it's very developed for the delivery of the food or the delivery of the commodities. Or once you search the mobile and make a purchase, then there is delivery within 1 hour to get whatever you want, whichever the restaurant. So these people are used by the application to also serve as the preliminary investigators. They take photos of the so-called infringers or counterfeiting stores, and then they send back to the application. Then the application can send back to the IP owners. Then the IP owners will have a chance to look at the real photos of those copycat stores or infringing stores, and they make their decision on whether or not they want to go further to the enforcement actions. So this is a combination of the online applications and the physical world. So this is the intellectual property case. And another case is that I have heard about the so-called remote notary. Because in China, in many litigations, before you can do the litigation, you have to prepare or so-called preserve the evidence by the notary public. However, in many cases, notary public may not physically stay in the city where the litigation will happen or where the evidence exists. And in recent few years, in particularly for the COVID-19, there are some development of the applications that people can use, can access or apply for the notarization of the evidence online, even if you are other area, say for example, are in North America, you still can use this kind of application to preserve your evidence, to make your affidavit, and then this kind of evidence will be notarized by the Chinese notary public. And then these kind of notary report can be submitted to the court without a necessity of you come back to China to attend the litigation. So this is the second example that's out of my mind. I think another very interesting example would be the legal database. When you have want to search your cases, and in China, because every company have a registration with the authority, and one fortunate thing in China is that this big country has a unified kind of uniformed kind of registration of the company records. So currently, there are quite a few companies who can provide online search engines. So if you enter into their system, then you can find everything about a particular legal entity, including their capital investment, who are their shareholders, and what cases they have been litigating, and what kind of enforcement of the cases have been done, and what kind of fines or punishment by the regulators, authorities, government authorities, whether or not they are paying tax for their employees. All this kind of information can be easily find out from this kind of application. So that's another example. However, again, as I mentioned, up to now, I have yet to see much this kind of technology actually using the artificial intellectual AIs. The only example in my mind comes out is there is a very interesting application which can answer your questions. Say, for example, you want to know whether my asset or what will happen to my asset if I have a divorce litigation or divorce kind of case. Then the application will give you some basic answers. And the more question you raise to that application, the application seems to be learning what your situation about your life and your situation. And then the answer could be more and more accurate. I think there are some kind of machine learning behind this application, but it's very basic. And that application, as far as I know, was focusing on the family law and domestic law.
Interesting. And by the way, are these solutions working in Chinese language or English? The one that you're referring to?
Though these solutions, what I have mentioned, are mostly provided in Chinese language because most litigations and legal actions must be taken in the language of Chinese.
Interesting. I mean, coming from a US-based company, I see a lot of English-based solutions, right? So it's interesting to see that there are also Chinese-based solutions, like Chinese language-based solutions. Interesting. Thank you
Yes,
so much.
yes. Yeah, no problem. And a very interesting thing is the first example that I've mentioned, which is the intellectual property enforcement tool, which is a combination of the physical world and the online crawling of the marketplace. That one, most of the users of that application, as far as I know, are international IP owners. And I believe they are bilingual. That application is bilingual because many users are either the big companies, IP owners, brand owners, or the big law firms. And I happened to know the founder of that company, that startup. And interestingly, that founder was a lawyer, and he got a JD from the States.
As you did, right? You have a bar exam in New York, correct?
Yeah, I started in the States beforehand, and I have been worked in two cities mainly, Boston and San Francisco.
Well, interesting background. How did you like US? Did you enjoy your time there? Did you see any difference between West, East Coast?
Oh yes, a very big difference. So the first thing is about the weather,
Of
and I
course.
think the weather makes the culture difference. And the East Coast people are more, they are more, I would say, intense and focus on their business and efficient, and but less of the laid back. I like California because people are more passionate and more lazy sometimes because they know they want to spend their time to their own say, for example, startups or their own imaginations. So both coasts will have be very interesting kind of this kind of culture.
Nice. Thank you for sharing this. Yeah, so very interesting. So you just to quickly recap, you mentioned three main areas maybe four. IP, you said, is one areas of legal tech development. One is remote public notaries, and then you mentioned databases for online search engines for litigation, so case law, from my understanding.
Yes, it's a combination of the company's background data, including all the company's data that is available online, including their company registration, their record of litigation, their tax record, their regulatory cases, and all these kind of things. So if you have a transaction, I mean, if you have an M&A case, then in China it's easier because you can find basically the background of the target company, and all the published kind of information can be easily accessed from this kind of website. And there are competing websites who provides this kind of combination of the information.
Nice. And then you mentioned the Q&A part, the question and answers that can be automated by some tools by asking some questions to the tool. Interesting.
Yes, that's one. But that one was very basic. It's basically just like a chat box, and it's very limited. I think it's hard for the artificial intelligence to really answer the question of each specific case. for each specific client, because the cases varies. Even the same kind of situation, maybe the different clients would have different kind of commercial decisions. So that's the reason what I see is it is limited to the family law or the basic kind of real estate law, these aspects.
Nice. And okay, so in terms of data privacy concerns, also in light of recent China new law on data protection, what are the kinds of data privacy concerns that come up for lawyers when choosing legal tech tools to work with?
Mm, it depends on what kind of legal tech is used. Um, say for example, usually if there is a legal tech that can help lawyers to draft their documents, say for example contracts or basic kind of these kind of agreements as the first drafter, and then this kind of legal tech, I don't see too many issues in relation to the data privacy, because the client of this kind of legal tech are usually business rather than the individual consumers, right?
Right.
However, say for example, like I have mentioned, the kind of Q&A chat box with regard to the basic legal status of the status of law, that kind of application could access or receive quite a lot of personal information, and then that obviously will drive the owner of that kind of application to be to they have to put more resources into the compliance of the data privacy law. So this is the second aspect. I think the third aspect is our daily work for our clients. If we use the this kind of legal tech, one issue always jumped out to our mind is whether or not that company is qualified to provide this kind of so-called service,
Mhm,
because
mhm,
this company may not be law firms. They are
mhm,
providing tech solutions, and lawyers do have uh, quite a lot of either ethnic or kind of a professional requirement on keeping the confidentiality of their clients' information. So for lawyers, in most cases, no problem for the data privacy issues, because their obligation is higher than the ordinary kind of companies. However, if we work with these kind of legal tech companies, we would have to check if these companies are also so firstly in compliance with the data privacy law. Secondly, also if they can really be responsible for the confidentiality of the clients. So I think that's, if you can give me some kind of examples with regard to more kinds or categories of the legal tech, maybe I have more ideas.
Sure, that's a very good question. I mean, very good answer. So, two important things: the data protection, data privacy protection, compliance, and then the how is data handled within the company, so confidentiality. I have a question. So, you mentioned different tools, but so which one do you see uh, the slow to take off, or the slowest to be introduced within the market you are currently in?
Mm, usually we again, in this part of the world, most lawyers are still using their manpower to do the research or the basic kind of database like LexisNexis, all these kind of database. Chinese version, we do have the similar kind of websites or programs. Most lawyers and law firms are still using these kind of manpower, and um, I think in the near future, there is possibility that some lawyers or some smaller SMEs, smaller and middle-sized kind of enterprise may try to use the legal tech instead of the lawyers to do most of their daily drafting work or this kind of work. However, this has yet to happen in this part of the world in China. One of the key reasons is that the Chinese laws are generally new. It's just not just like the common law system. You have 100 years of the cases, and you have a lot of stable precedents, and then you have a basis to input the legal tech into the to help the lawyers. However, for Chinese lawyers, maybe their workload for searching the cases and searching the authorities and legislations are just one part of their work. Most of their work is to developing and trying to find the ways and logic and the interpretation of the law by their own way. So another issue is the authorities in China, I would say, changes more frequently their rules than the other countries. So it's a challenge for even the human beings rather than the legal tech and artificial intelligence.
So would you say it's a bit more difficult for legal tech to? This is maybe one of the reasons, well, for ML AI to learn, because if the data you're using to trust is changing much faster, of course that could be
Yes.
one of the reasons to slow down the development of those products and therefore the adoption.
Yes.
Very true. Very interesting. So very interesting point about the SMEs aspect that are potentially being more attracted by some of these legal innovation tools. So still talking about professional lawyers, attorneys. So how do you see the automation helping boost a bit of creativity at work for lawyers?
In Asia and in China, in my experience, the automation have yet to have any significant change for the lawyers' daily work in law firms, again because they need more manpower to understand the latest development of the authorities and the authorities' attitude. Usually before we issue an legal advice, we will not only search the law and case precedents, sometimes we will have to liaise with the authority officials and to understand their latest attitude to certain issue. So all these kind of issues will make the traditional legal advisory work more difficult to connect it with the automation. However, in China, this topic just reminds me something new, which is that at least in China, I also in the States, I see quite a lot of effort being put into the blockchain, the programs based on blockchain, either like the intellectual property licensing programs based on the blockchain, or using the blockchain to record the say, for example, the amount of the products, and then this kind of amount of the products is linked to the license with the IP owners. So this kind of application has been considered or even being developed in both the States and China. I personally have been touched with at least 2 or 3 projects Some of them I cannot say them because there are confidential issues, but what I am now involving and which is disclosable is we are trying to use the blockchain system or this kind of technology to build up a licensing program for the new plant varieties licenses. Say for example, the flowers. If you have flowers, new plant variety of the flowers, new kinds of the flowers, if you want to license to certain farmers who are if you are a breeder and you are licensing your flower new variety of the flower to certain farmers, what you are worrying about is whether or not that farmer is in compliance with the license agreement. Say for example, the number of the flowers they are breeding. So by using this kind of blockchain system to lock into each big market, I mean the wholesale market of the flowers, say for example in China, then we can monitor how many for a particular category sort of new plant variety, we can monitor how many uh, flowers have been being produced by using this new variety, and then we can combine the numbers of different markets because of the blockchain. No market can change their numbers, and then we can figure out whether or not the farmer or the licensee are actually exceeding the scope of their license. Then we can go after them and to look at them. So this is a program actually we are working with the local industry, flower industry in China.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Let me understand a bit more. So how do you track the different varieties using the blockchain? I mean, flowers are physical objects, and blockchain is decentralized around the globe. I guess you have people that need to input data manually. Is this correct?
You are right, but now it's not manually input because if you go to Netherlands, because now there are the two biggest wholesale market of the flower in this world. The first one is in Netherlands, in Holland. The second one is in China, in southwest part of China. There is a city whose name is Kunming, and what we have seen is, although there are different farmers breeding their flowers in their fields, but they have to sell into the wholesale markets, and the number of the wholesale markets are limited. So each time when they sell their flowers, the wholesale market will categorize and classify all the flowers, and they can really recognize each new plant variety of these kind of flowers. So before we have this blockchain, the problem is only one or two market can record the number of a particular farmer's products. However, the same farmer can sell counterfeiting or infringing flowers into other markets, and maybe that market is not that very alert to the protection of the intellectual property. So what we do is we encourage each wholesale market to use this blockchain system. So the number of a particular farmer's particular kind of flower will be accumulated and fixed. No market can change them. So that's the way of connecting the physical world and the records of the data.
Nice. Very interesting. So data is already there, is already categorized. What the idea is to bring it to the blockchain to make it immutable and potentially as a source of truth against the new types that are being counterfeit. That's a very good
Right,
idea.
right. And after reading this kind of data, we will have a faster way to identify the likely infringers and then we can go to investigate them and see whether or not they should have a rationale to say, okay, because I have a very advanced technology to breed my flowers, so that's the reason I can have so many products based on that kind of license. Okay, that's reasonable. But in many cases, this is not the case, only because they are breeding more flowers in more fields, exceeding the license. So that's basically, that's a kind of a tool to help us to target the potential infringers.
Nice. And then this brings me to the next question. I saw that, so you have some experience. You mean on your LinkedIn, you mean, you write, can speak a programmer's language. So my question to you is, how much of programmer's language people need to understand to interface, with something like the blockchain that you just mentioned? This project, do you see lawyers that need to study the blockchain, or how are you interfacing with the blockchain? Is it someone else doing that? And what's the role of the lawyer in that as well?
I think the lawyers do not have to actually write the programs by themselves. And they even do not have to actually understand the source code of the programs. But
Okay.
they need have a kind of, they need to know the way that the programmers are thinking, how the product managers are thinking. Say, for example, for lawyers, maybe in front of any case, what we see is okay, whether or not this kind of activity is legal or illegal, or whether or not this kind of activity will be helpful for our client. So this is the lawyer's thinking, which is no problem. But in the meantime, in the programs world, they are looking at a kind of a definite result of their programs. If they write the program this way, there should be, unless there are bugs, there should be a result over there. So the lawyers needs to know what they are thinking before they can actually speak with the programmers or the product developers or product managers. Another issue is, at least the lawyers needs to know some terms in this internet world. Say, for example, they need to know what is the APIs, what is the interface, what are the protocols, all these kind of things. For the blockchain, they at least needs to know the basic rationale why this kind of so-called smart contract can be fixed. And in the meantime, they have to know the smart contract are not contract. It's just a kind of a metaphor. So all these kind of languages needs to be combined. And if a lawyer really want to work with the tech people and the tech companies, at least they have to be prepared of this kind of a basic knowledge.
Nice. And how do you think law school curriculum should actually include training for students to use tech tools, or maybe coding classes? Do you think, how do you think it happen? Yes, no, and how?
I would say, I would not say that everyone needs to learn programming, but everyone in law school at least needs to have a chance to learn the latest development of the legal tools, or I mean the tech tools. Say, for example, what are the artificial intelligence, what are the machine learning, what are the protocols between different kind of networks, and why what are the, say, for example, the blockchains, the basic of the blockchains, and the basic of the, say, for example, the NFTs, what are their basic knowledge about. So before a student graduate from the law school, if he or she has this kind of a preparation, then he can be easier to be accessed when he or she has a chance to access to the legal project with the tech companies. She or he will find himself be easier to understand what the clients are saying. And more importantly, sometimes the lawyers nowadays not only need to advise the law or interpret the law, they need to provide the solutions. My experience is I am closely helping my clients to provide the solutions or even to design the business models. Say, for example, I'm a basically legal counsel of some privacy enhancing computation company. They have this kind of a technology to protect to do the de-identification of the personal data or to protect the personal data, but in the meantime to help to easier the transfer of the personal data. So what I do is not only to tell them what the law is saying, what the GDPR is saying, what the CCPA is saying. I'm trying to help them to form their business model. How can I do that? I think the basic knowledge of the technology and the basic knowledge of the legal tools, tech tools, are a very good addition to my bank of the knowledge and in my service to my clients.
Nice. Yeah, I believe so too. Indeed, understanding the way coders think and at least understanding what are the main concepts will help a long way down the path to make any decision. As we are speaking with the other industry legal expert, we see this industry going more towards strategic consulting rather than analyzing contracts in some aspects. So being a strategic consultant or more of a project manager as a role, it involves understanding people, right? And understanding, as you said, the psychology behind what they're doing and the way they code. So I really appreciate your feedback on this, and I agree on that as well. So we're coming toward the end of the podcast. We've been talking for almost 45 minutes, and I really enjoyed this conversation with you. We have one more question, still about tech and about programmer mind. So how thinking like a programmer has helped you as a lawyer in your experience, Donnie?
I think when I was working with a fintech company, before I come back to the private practice like 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I was working with a fintech unicorn in Asia, and I got the chance to work with the programmers and product managers, AML product managers, all these managers. They have the background of the tech background, and what they have, they are very target driven, and they sometimes can teach me, actually had taught me quite a lot with regard to not only their product but also the way they are developing their products. So I think I would recommend all lawyers to find or look for any chance to closely work with the programmers or the legal tech developers. Do not think about your billing rate. Do not think about your fees. Just jumping into one of these kind of project, even pro bono basis. I think my own experience is it will be very interesting, very helpful for your career, but also very interesting, enjoyable. So you will see a lot of insightful ideas from another angle or perspective that the lawyers do not used to having. So I would recommend everyone to look for these kind of chances.
Thank you, Donnie. Thank you very much. This was a great episode. Actually, it's the first guest from China. So we learned a lot today about how companies interact, what's the mindset, and actually the use of technology. So we hope to see you again soon at one of our next episodes. And thank you everyone for listening and being part of this live podcast today. We are here every Thursday with industry expert innovators and legal experts. So thank you again for being here, and feel free to follow us on the social media as well as on the website. We have blog posts about the topic every week as well. Thank you everyone, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Donnie, again. Thank you.
Thank you, Hans. And I'm very delighted, and it's my honor to join this kind of episode. And I will look forward to the future episodes and introduce all my friends to join it.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we can build a better future following what you said today about interacting, even sometime pro bono, just for learning and understanding how we can move forward to build a better and more positive world. Thank you.
Of course. Right. Thank you.